bit of a fooling around there at the end. But anyway, we're just in for a little bit of country rock. And so, yeah, of a number of different styles. We'll do a few different styles from the rockier stuff, like the Stones, to the more country style, like the Eagles and Bernie Leadon's play. And then we'll, don't I need a cowboy hat to play those riffs? No, you can do it without a cowboy hat. I should get one though. Right. Okay. Cool. So. All right. So we're going to start off with looking at some of the notes that we can play to get more. And just keep in mind, this is an example of the learning paths that we do on the member sites. So if you like this sort of thing, we do this every month, where we have learning paths, and the members get to choose what the learning paths are, and it comes with tab and backing tracks and stuff like that. So that's what we're doing today. All right, let's start out with some of those notes that we're playing, because we're not just playing the normal sort of pentatonic scales that maybe we're used to if we're playing blues rock, like the. Now, some of those can work in country rock, but it's not the primary scale. So let's start out with what that primary scale is, and let's go a little bit close. And make sure that you type in your questions. If you have any questions along the way, type in your questions. So, and I'll look up periodically. So let's do this in D for strategic reasons, because we're going to be doing a couple of these things in D. So the key thing is for country sort of rock, I think of it as all kind of becoming influenced through, there's a number of different ways of thinking about this, but my favorite way of thinking about the influence is to think about the influence as coming from Lester Flatt. So Lester Flatt was the person who invented what's called the G run, which is this. That's all over bluegrass music, but you can hear it in country. You can hear it in country music, and you can hear it in country rock as well. And it's like the blues scale, but for country. Okay. And what it does is it takes a major chord. It's based off of major chord, not a minor chord or a minor sort of structure. So if we look at this G chord right here, we're going to base all of our stuff based on this chord and this chord shape, okay? So we're going to do this in D. So what we're first going to do is think about if I take that root and I bring it all the way up to D, right there, and I play that chord. Now that's a horrible sounding chord, I think. Right? And you don't want to be playing that, bends out of tune and all that. The point is not to play the chord, but the point is to realize that this is what it's coming out of, okay? And it's also, and the point is, the other point is that it's based off of the major scale. So if we just kind of play our regular pentatonic box based on this chord, we get. So if we were playing a song in D, and we were going to be structuring our solos, we might want to structure them based on this D pentatonic position. And in fact, that's what I'm going to do for a lot of today, is I'll be basing a lot of stuff off of that, as you'll see. So that's just the basics. And but we can also add that Lester Flatt note. So the Lester Flatt note is actually a minor third. Okay, so instead of just playing, we're going to add one note here. We're going to add. Now, for those of you who know the blues scale, this is just basically the minor pentatonic, the B minor pentatonic blues scale. And that would work over a minor blues. But of course, we're thinking in terms of major here, and that's really the difference. Things are going to be structured off of major primarily, not minor chords. Okay, so that's the first way that we can alter it. The second way that we can alter it is by playing what's called the Mixolydian scale. And that, the Mixolydian, what that does is it gives a little bit of edginess, just like this little blue note does. Just like that little blue note does, the happy blue note, the major blue note. I don't know if that's what people call it. I'm calling it that. We're going to add the flatted seventh in there. So instead of just playing, we'll play. And then we're also going to add this note right here, which is a G, and that's a note that comes in to the 4 chord. So if you're playing, say, a country blues in D, the 4 chord would be a G, and so we're adding that note. Allman Brothers used to do this all the time, right? Happens all the time in the Allman Brothers, right? So it's not just like, it's not just like the Eagles. It's also bordering Southern rock, and we'll do some Skynyrd type of stuff today too. All right, Chuck Berry a little bit, yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, for sure. All those guys: Albert Lee, Sam Moore, James Burton. I mean, yeah. If you don't know Graham Parsons' music, you're really missing out. I mean, Graham Parsons is a guy who really exploded it and brought it to the Stones. And the Eagles, Bernie Ledden played with him in the Burrito Brothers, Flying Burrito Brothers. But anyway, let's take a quick look at those scales so we can see what it looks like on there. So we can see what all that looks like. Let me flip over my view here. So there we go. So this would be the D major pentatonic box. And then if we add the, oops, that's not what I wanted. There we go. This would be the D major pentatonic box. And it's based on this G shape here. And then if we want to add what we might call the bluegrass pentatonic, oh, I like that name. The bluegrass pentatonic scale, it becomes this. And you'll notice it's just the blues scale. For those of you who know the blues scale, it's just the blues scale, but again, we're thinking of it in terms of D, not in terms of B minor. And then this is the D Mixolydian scale. Now, I get a lot of questions like this, like, oh, so if I just play these notes, then I'll be okay, and I'll hit right notes, and you can say, well, I can add them all together and get something like this. But think about memorizing this all over the neck. It just doesn't work. It doesn't work for me. Maybe it works for you, but it doesn't work for me. So what I recommend is basically just understanding this framework of D major pentatonic and then finding out the notes that are going to work to add in. So really spending some time with those notes that are going to give you a little bit of an edginess. Like, let me go close again so you can see what I'm doing. So if we're playing over a D, instead of just playing every note, just figure out what's going to sound good to you. You know, stuff like that. All that's really coming from that major pentatonic. I'm just playing around with those additional notes that are there, knowing that in this case I've got a C that I'm adding, and then a G, and the occasional F. Eventually got the right chord. Thought I was in E there for a second. All right, well, let's improvise a little bit. Let's take a little time now that we've looked at those scales. And yeah, well, Return of the Grievous Angel is, it's sort of a tribute. It was posthumous. It was published posthumously, but It wasn't done too much after he recorded all that stuff. I think it came out like in 74 or something, right? He died like in 73, I want to say. Maybe 72. I don't know. His death is a weird death too. He died in Joshua Tree National Monument, I think, and then they drove him over the state line, which was illegal. They drove his dead body back to California. Weird. He lived a party in life, that's for sure. Okay, well, let's try the next one, and this one's called Faded Petals. I want to remind people that if you're not a member, this is the sort of stuff that we do, and you'll get backing tracks and stuff like that to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play a solo largely based on those notes, and I'll really emphasize it slowly the first time so you can hear it, and then we'll just improvise a little bit after that, okay? So let's see if we can do that. I'm not sure if we can. There we go. Let me remind myself what I played. I usually improvise stuff, so I have to remind myself of what it... Okay, yeah, I got it. All right. All right. This is going to be weird playing something that's canned and then something that's improvised. It'll be fun. Challenge for me. Make sure the level's right. I think maybe I need to turn it up a little bit. Just a tiny bit. Touch. Let's see about this. Yeah, it should be okay. All right. All right, so again, we're just going to emphasize some of those notes that we did, and I'm going to start out just in this position right here in D. So that's what we'll try and do. Okay. Okay. So you can see I was really kind of using a lot of that stuff very basically. Right? And then some of the other stuff was a little maybe less obvious. You know, that kind of stuff, right? One other thing I do want to mention is that if you're playing country music, you've really got to play a little bit more out of chords and really work for, you know, this is like, I sound like a broken record, but work for chord tones out of this. So you heard me doing things like, you know, things like that, where I'm playing a D. This would be over a D. Let me go closer so you can see what I'm doing. This would be over a D chord, right? Here's my D. Same as this, it's just an octave up. Okay, so I might outline this. And then I go to an A, I might play. And a G, I might play this. And this is a third of a D. But then you could also hear the that's just our bluegrass pentatonic. All right. All right. I'm going to pause here for taking a second here. Oh, thanks, Chris. Yeah, that's the extended version for sure. All right. D mixolydian would be the scale starting on, G scale starting on D. Yeah, it is the G major scale starting on D. That's one way of looking at it. You can also simply look at the D mixolydian as the D major pentatonic, but you're adding the blues chords. You're adding a C and you're adding a G. To me, adding that flatted, the flatted third really makes a huge difference. And I love putting in that flatted third. It really, to me, it sounds it gets that really country blues sound. Whereas the mixolydian doesn't have that in there. You know, that kind of stuff. Sounds good. Sounds good to me. All right. The next thing we'll talk about, next thing I want to talk about is bending, because bending is different as well in country blues. And bending involves, instead of bending to the fifth like we do in blues rock, I bet you never noticed this, but that's what we do. If you're playing blues in A, let's say we're playing some blues rock, blues in A. This bend right here, which is the most common bend, is bending to the fifth of A. So that's an E. Now, the fifth is great. It gives us all the power chords, right? You know, it gives us those power chords, and it helps us stay in tune, which, by the way, I probably should be checking because I'm bending a lot out. But it's not as sweet, and so when you want sweet sounds, you bend to the third. You emphasize the third of the chord. Now, because you're emphasizing the third, this whole minor sound kind of goes out the window, and that's why when you listen to country rock, it tends to be a little bit sweeter and based on the major pentatonic. Because if we base something on the major pentatonic, I want you to see something here. So we'll go close, and we'll do a couple of typical bends, right? Let's do the typical bend. If I'm playing over a D, the typical bend would be like this. Sounds like a pedal steel, right? What are we doing there? Well, here's a D, and this is an E, and I'm bending this to an F sharp. Now, if you know that F sharp is the third of a D chord, which you can figure out because this is an F sharp right here, that's great. If you don't know, just think of this shape right here, but on the top three strings, and you get... And we're bending, instead of playing this directly, we're bending to it. We're playing the top two like this, and then we're bending. And you'll find that most of the country bends, not all, but most of the country bends are like that. If we take this, that's another very typical one. I'm doing it all in D here. There's my D. There's the E, and I'm bending up to the third. I'm bending up to the F sharp. Oh. The other thing that's really interesting, I think, about country bends is you're not just bending a single note. You rarely hear something like, you know, something like that. You always hear something like, I am using nines here on this telly. On my Les Pauls, I use tens, and it definitely hurts. It definitely hurts. But this is pretty good. This is pretty good. All right, so we often will grab a string above it, right? And then bring it down. That's a hard one to bend. Maybe I'll bend it up here. Anyway, those are some of the bending ideas that we can do, and it's not limited to that. But we have that. We also often do what are called pre-bends, and that is we bend first, and then hit the top note, and then hit the note that's already bent and bring it down like this. Right? Or and it takes a little time to get. You need some strength and stamina as well as, you know, good pitch. Now, I'll show you those. My favorite one is actually this one. But that one's really hard because you're bending with the first finger. Ooh. Takes some time for sure. All right, let's do a little improvising to a track that features some bends. This is called Peaceful Easy, and we're going to emphasize Bernie Leadon's type of play with the Eagles. And this is another thing where the chord progression isn't going to allow us all that weird stuff. So this one happens to be an E. Sorry about that, folks. So we're going to shift over to E. But it's not going to allow us to do so many like we could do a little bit, but it's got to be limited. All right, don't play it too well. It's hard to. It's hard to, believe me. All right, we'll try it again. Oh, I see what you're saying. Well, I'm not gonna, it's based off of that. We're gonna improvise a little bit, okay? Hey, Christopher. All right, if you're just joining, we're doing country rock today. You might want to go back to the beginning. These are basically, we're doing lessons today, and this is what members get every month, but more so because we do tabs and backing tracks, and we actually do live Zoom sessions that you can talk and ask questions on. It's all recorded for folks. So if that interests you, great. That's a great way to help support me. And anyway, thanks for coming on. And I want to thank my members right now. You can get 15% off today if you want to join as a member. Okay, let's get back to it. Let's get back to it. All right, Peaceful Easy. I think this is an E, Peaceful Easy backing track, we'll call this. Matt is here. All right, and let's see what we've got. Might be a little bit louder. Let's give it a shot. All right, now this one warms up a little bit, so it's not just Bernie Leadon's thing. But we'll play around with it a little bit, and might have to do this twice because I haven't improvised so much. Okay, let's give it a try. All right. Settings. Tim Bradley asked settings on amp and guitar. Well, the settings on the amp are kind of useless because I just have it set for clean. This is a Fender Deluxe Reverb, so just make sure you're playing clean out of your amp if you want that. Thank you so much, Chris. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate the tip. Tips are always appreciated, by the way. That's another way you can support me. If you don't want to become a member, you don't want to buy a course or something like that, that's another way you can support me. However, you want to make sure it's clean on the guitar. I usually pull back. I'm using the bridge pickup on this. I usually pull back a little bit on the volume, but your mileage may vary on your own volume pot. And then on your tone knob, I dip that down just a little bit to avoid the ice picky sound. Usually, I can pull it up if I really want that country twang. And then the only other thing I have on this is I have a tiny amount of compression. And you just asked about it. There's a tiny amount of compression. You don't want to use compression is like salt in food. You don't want to put too much salt in the food or spices in the food because then you won't even taste the food unless you have really bad ingredients. So if you have really bad ingredients as a guitar player, it probably means you need to practice the basics more. So worry about tone that way. Compression's a great thing to add if you're not adding too much. That's what I would say. So that's a great question. All right. Thank you. Great question, Tim. All right. Any other questions or comments on the bending? I find country bending like just one of the most fun things to do. All right, so we talked about scales, we talked about bending. What's next? Well, the next thing is picking. So country picking is different. Country picking, we have something called, now I'm gonna cover this with some trepidation because it's not that easy. There's more to it too. This is not meant to be totally comprehensive, but here's a third thing that we can focus on. Third thing that we can talk about and cover is cross picking. So you'll notice, let me go close again. So you'll notice that in the opening number that I played, we're not going to talk about chicken picking. Which is kind of cool. But it's of limited application, I would say. I don't know, maybe if you're a big Knopfler fan. Knopfler used that sort of thing in rock a lot. Which I am a big Knopfler fan, but I don't use it as much as maybe I could. But chicken picking, yeah, it's good. We're not going to talk about chicken picking today. Although I guess we could. But if you stick around, maybe we can answer some questions on that. We're going to talk about cross picking. So what is cross picking? Cross picking just means we're going to arpeggiate a lot of strings like this. Yeah, Carl Perkins was definitely country-ish, right? No question that he was country-ish. Hey, Mr. Vague. So that's a good question. I don't know if I would say he was country completely, but definitely heavily country influence for sure. So how do you develop that sort of banjo rolling type thing? Well, one of the things is you can play this progression is a great one to practice on. And for this, I'm just using a G chord. This is just 3 chords. G, F, and C. but I'm only playing on the D, G, and B strings. Now, you can play different things where you're playing just straight up-down picking. And that, you can develop your technique that way. That's one way to do it. Some people like to play double down and then back up. And sometimes that's helpful. Sometimes that multiple strings down can be helpful. Like, even on things like... you hear that sort of thing. But the last thing I wanted to show you was hybrid picking, and we'll just do really the simplest thing in hybrid picking that we can do. We're just going to do one finger hybrid picking. So we'll use this little thing. Now, I said I played a G and an F and a C, and I just played them on a D, C, or the D, G, and B strings. I kind of lied. I left the G string open because I'm playing licks in G. And that gives it that ringing sound, right? Well, one of the ways I can pick that is pick the top note with just my middle finger. I mean, no offense here, ladies and gentlemen. If I pick on this note, I can pick up on it. I'll see if I can get on the side so you see it. So I'm going down, down, up. Now there's lots of different ways I could play with two fingers. But we're just going to do the very basic. So I'm just using my middle finger. I put it on the top string, okay? The highest pitch string that I'm playing in this arpeggio, and we'll pull up. So and these are good exercises. If you play that, you can get some proficiency with all three of those techniques. Like I said, my preference is for either straight alternate picking. My general preferences are just straight alternate picking, or sometimes hybrid picking. And I actually use two fingers on hybrid picking, but this is an easy way to get started. Now, why do you want to know all three of those? Well, the reason why you want to know all three of those is because some of the times when you play these licks, they're going to be easier using one of those techniques. And I'll give you an example, like some of this. So if I'm going to play that, which is a little bit different, it sounds a little more banjo-esque, doesn't it, than just straight, than just picking. You have this kind of like this. I might go down, down on some of those. Or I might go down, down, and then pick up with my finger. And, again, it's good to know all three of these and practice all three of these so that you can make decisions that make sense. And you can get pretty proficient with it without a lot of effort. Now, I'm not any sort of Nashville guy who can play super fast with it. I can just play a little bit on that, but it's helpful. And I'll tell you, if you practice that sort of thing, it really can help you on a ton of like Skinnerd licks, right? And it can help you get proficient on stuff like that. So it's a good thing to practice. Those are the three things. Again, I want to emphasize, like, these are the sort of exercises that we do with members, and every month we cover this sort of thing. All right, so let's just do let's do something that was based off of let's do a little bit of that, channeling Ed King maybe. And Dan will do the thing that's off of the. We'll do it a little bit off the page here. I'm trying to remember what. Okay, right. Okay, yeah, let's try this one. All right, we're going to improvise a little bit. Again, I'm going to improvise using that scale. We're going to do something that's basically like a reverse Sweet Home Alabama. So instead of going, we'll reverse those chords. We'll start with D, but then we'll go G, and then we'll end up on the C. Turn it up. All right. All right. And for this, maybe I'll turn it up. All right. And I really should have used a Strat on this, but I'm not going to change out this telly. All right, let's do this. Let's try this. This is called Swedish. Not Swedish. I am going to Sweden pretty soon. But let's see what we've got here. Okay. Yeah. All right. Okay. Missed some of that. Let's try it again. Let's play that again. The improvisation was not that good. It's a little slow. I slowed this one down, so I'm having trouble with the slow speed. I was trying to double time it a little bit. All right, well, there we go. Anyway, so, yeah, so there we go. If adding a few different scale notes, that works really well. Thinking about the chords that you're playing over, that makes a big difference. And, yeah, oh yeah, sure, Daniel, I can go over that. I can go over that. Bends, bending a little bit differently. And the picking. Practice those things, and you'll be able to play this country rock stuff pretty well. All right, let's just take a bunch of questions. Swedish meatballs. All right, let's go over the Ed trills, the Ed King trills. So, he does some other stuff in that, and it's interesting that Ed King does that basically using G shapes. A lot of what he does uses G shapes, which is kind of interesting because he's resolving on a G, right? So he's doing that. I'm not really resolving. I'm going to the C chord at the end. that's not really a resolved chord, right? That's a suspended chord. So I've got to do something over that holding pattern before I get back to the D, right? All right, so Ed King. So all I was doing on that one is let's take our bluegrass pentatonic and it's just an artifact of this bluegrass pentatonic that we have yeah, it's definitely very timing sensitive. You want to make sure that you hit that D at the right time, and it's really the strong beats that you're hitting those D. In this solo, there's another thing that's going on here, and that is if you look at the D chord and the G chord, you can think about common tones there, and they both have a D in them. That's the common tone between these two chords. So if you hang on that D, you can really do a lot. It fits over the G chord and it fits over that D chord. So you'll hear a all right, anyway. How would bluegrass runs and leads compare to country? Bill Monroe, but well, Bill Monroe is bluegrass, of course, right? So we already talked about that. So Bill Monroe is he's a contemporary of Flatt and Scruggs, and so yeah, he just played on the mando. You know, when I played a lot of mandolin, I played a lot of Bill Monroe stuff. B.B. King for country. Maybe some of those bending. All right. So, yeah, cool. All right, well, hope you enjoyed this one. I think if there's no other questions, we will sort of just play a couple out and talk about, what are some other things, especially if you're a member, I want to hear from you. For things, and Dan, who's been through a lot of these, understands the drill. I'm going to ask you now, what are the things that you want to hear? Instead of country rock, maybe you want to hear a different sort of thing. Maybe you want lessons on a different sort of thing. But you have to tell me, because otherwise I do not know, and I'm just guessing. And it stinks for both of us. All right, so having said that, let's play some other side of country rock. So here's some country rock. Now, I don't want to give the impression that all country rock is all rainbows and unicorns. It can be pretty dark. So I think we're going to play one let me play one that's kind of dark. So for dark stuff, it's still, what's interesting, what I always found was interesting about bluegrass and country, when they play, for the most part, not all, but a lot of times when you play dark sounding music, you never actually use minor chords. Or you don't actually use minor chords. A good example might be Shady Grove or something like that. And not using any minor chords there, but it sounds much darker, doesn't it? Much darker. darker. All right, well, let's take advantage of that darkness. Under cover of darkness, let's play a little bit. Okay. This might be a little bit louder, so I've got to watch the volume on this backing track. More time. All right, that's enough. That's enough. There's all sorts of things that you can do there. I would not recommend Locrian, de-Locrian mode. Wow, that's pretty freaky, right? That's pretty freaky. Whew, that is pretty freaky. That would be really weird. Let's hear Locrian over that. That's crazy dark. You don't want that sort of dark. That's not going to sound bluesy. It's just going to sound weird. Locrian. All right, we'll do the Locrian mode here. Here we go. You can make it sort of work, but whoa. Now you can play. Oh, you could play. What could you play? You could play Dorian mode for sure. That works. You could play. Obviously, you could play Aeolian mode. If you're a modes guy, I'm just not a modes guy, but I used to do that all the time. I used to play like Dorian mode if I wanted a darker sound, right? You could certainly play Mixolydian. But it's this play with the F and the D major that's really kind of fun. Yeah, play around with that kind of stuff using those sixths. I find that's a lot of fun. You know, you can play over Mixolydian or Dorian using that sort of thinking. So, yeah. And you can just play over chords, which is you know. Just playing over chords. They're little chord doodles. Here's a A-shaped D. You know, you can play that. Here's a E-shaped D. You know, you can do that. Here's a D-shaped D. So that's all scale-free stuff, you know. You know I love to play scale-free stuff. Stop, frees you up so much to have to. I always find that honestly, here's the way I think about it, and I just know this from myself when I was this way too. When I was a pick the scales guy, when I was a modes guy, I always thought there was a right answer, and there were a bunch of wrong answers, but there was a right answer. And when I got out of that, I realized there's so many different answers that you can come up that work. And it's just so freeing to not have to think that way. You don't have to think that way if you're a modes guy, but I did back then. I find a lot of modal players do think that way. Oh, there's a right way, there's a wrong way. It's all like there's a theoretical right way, and you know, your play will start to sound like that, which is fine, you know, in some ways. But I like that edgy sound. I like the sound of those notes that don't quite fit. They only fit because our ears are telling us they're cool, and they've told us they're cool over the years. Hey, Pangaroo, haven't seen you in a while. It's good to see you. Using different inversions of chords instead of the commonly used cowboy bar chords. Yeah, sure thing, man. Yeah, broke out of the mode. Yeah, I'll tell you. I mean, one of my favorite inversions is what people sometimes call the Hendrix inversion. Oh, okay, gotcha, Avis. Yeah, and you know, look, I'm just saying that this is the sort of thing that I like to do. Is I love to play out of chords because I can find them so quickly instead of thinking about scale shapes. I can find them. You know, if I want to find a D, I can find it. Don't think that I don't use any scales though, because that would be false. That would definitely be false. Okay, oh, Tim asked this before. Sorry about that. I'm sorry. What programs do I use for tracks and transcription? For tracks. Sometimes I buy tracks. I use Band in a Box to create tracks because it's just so easy. That way I don't have to work too hard. But even with that, you do have to work a little bit hard. You have to know the styles and then know the substitution of the tracks for like different players. You know, like Brent Mason's great for this sort of stuff, but then, you know, when you're swapping them out to do some in a rock style, it's going to come out country. You're gonna want Jack Pearson playing, so you can swap in Jack Pearson's play. And sometimes I'll just record the backing track, like on the one here for the For that one, I recorded that after creating a backing track with some drums and bass and maybe organ. I put that on top of it. So it's, you know, it takes work. But Band in the Box is probably the easiest thing I've found. And then for transcription, I use Guitar Pro now. I used to use just the free Tux guitar. You mean for like writing tabs and stuff like that? For actually just pulling the notes and finding things, I just slow down YouTube and listen and use my ear. That's what I do. You know, if I'm going to learn a solo or something like that, that's what I do. So anyway, it's probably not all that helpful, but that's what I do. And then I don't use tabs that much myself, but I write out tabs for members because I know a lot of the members like tabs and they like having tabs on the screen for the videos. So I try to do those. I try to do those more than I used to. But yeah, that's a good question. Hey, good morning, Joe. Thank you, buddy. Thank you. We're just Quist. Yeah, Quist makes tracks too. Yeah, I mean, I don't know him very well, but yeah, I believe he makes good tracks from what I've heard. There's another guy who does elevated tracks. That last one I was doing was elevated jam tracks, right? So those are good tracks. Yeah, elevated jam tracks is really good, and they're not that expensive. I get them off of Bandcamp. Anyway, yeah. So there's a couple of different ideas. If you want actual songs, like pop songs that you already know, like say you're doing some stuff for karaoke or something, there's karaoke guitar or karaoke. If you Google guitar backing track, you're going to find something that says karaoke. Those are usually fairly reliable. If you're going to build a set based on that, and you want to do real songs, and you're not afraid of copyright or ASCAP coming and arresting you or whatever, yeah, those are good. Oh yeah, sure thing. Yeah, I mean, I still like using the dots diagrams. They're just really hard to do for solos, I find. They take a long time to make, and so I'll sometimes put the tab up. But there's a lot of people who don't like tab, so it's a turkey shoot. For people who like it, it's great. For people who don't, it's not that great. But I guess if I give the tab, you can always ignore it, right? If I don't give the tab, you can't ignore it. It's just not there, or you can't use it. So yeah. All right, so we got one idea about chord inversions. Hey, if you think of any afterward, you can always drop me a line. All right. One last time I want to mention that if you're enjoying this or enjoyed the lessons, this is unmonetized for you folks watching it live, or it's not monetized. It will be if you're, if you're watching it recorded, you'll see the ads. But I do it live without that because I want to, I want it to be a good experience, the best experience for people who are watching it live. Come and support me that way, which is great. And if you really want to support me, there's two different ways. One is you can drop a super chat or whatever. That's always appreciated. Chris dropped one earlier today, and I really do appreciate it. And then the best way to do it is to become a member. That's the best way because you get the best of both worlds. We do 3 live sessions, Zoom sessions a month where you can join live, ask me questions live. It's not over the internet like this, although we are live right now. We do a couple of these every month, and we now do learning paths, directed learning paths, where you got a lot of choice in the matter of what happens. The fact of the matter is most people go through life pretty passively and don't ask for things. So if you're one of those people who likes to ask for things, then the membership is great for you because I listen. It's really that simple. And if there aren't that many people asking and I listen, well, that works out pretty well for you. I'll just put it that way. All right. All right. Oh, thank you, Pangaroo. Really, thanks a lot, man. I really appreciate it. Really do appreciate it. And I appreciate everybody here, too. Thanks, Mr. Vague. Thank you. All right, let's see. Thank you, Chris. Really appreciate it. All right, let's play one more and we'll bid everybody a happy Sunday. Let's improvise a little bit to this. This is definitely country. I just saw Marcus King a little while ago, and of course Marcus King plays in that country-ish style, right? Allman Brothers type of style, or used to anyway. I don't know what he's going to do in the future. I got his last album, and it's more like, I have to say I was pretty disappointed in it because it's more like, I don't even know what you call it. It's like modern R&B where it's just kind of like beats. It sounds like he's using a drum track and like a drum machine, and I didn't like it. But live, he used a real band, and he had, the saxophone, and he had a couple of different horns on there, and the percussion. He had a slide player, organ. It was really nice. It was good. So I was happy. The songs sounded so much better live than they did on the album. His old stuff I just love. And when I say old, it's like, yeah, up to 2018. And then something happened after 2018. And his last ones, at least for me, I haven't enjoyed as much. He's a heck of a player. But I also saw Mary Chapin Carpenter, and she had an absolutely killer, it was an absolutely killer show. And of course she plays country-ish stuff. She's really more folky. I think the country was just a way for her to become more marketable in the 90s. But this reminds me of it. Duke Levine, one of my favorite Nashville guys, is played with her for years. Although he didn't play at that concert. They had another Nashville guy who was really good. So this is kind of in that style, and we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Have some fun. Oh, yeah, that's a good one. We can do more Robert Cray, too. That's a good thing, too. I'm a huge Robert Cray fan, as you know. Huge fan of his, and we can do more of that stuff. Okay, we will we'll see you next week, or maybe I'll stick around and drink some coffee with you guys. But this one is pretty straightforward. We'll go with the chords and then I'll play a little bit. A, E, oh no, what is it, D? Yeah, D. A, D, E, back to A. Okay. So it's basically just A, D, and E. There's probably a minor chord in here at some point. There's an F sharp minor. Get into it now. All right, stop. All right, we'll see you. I think I've had enough of this. I'll tell you what, I'm going to play this telly that I got back a little bit. I've been really enjoying this telly. Part of the reason why I wanted to do country rock was because I got this telly and I've just been loving it. This is just a Fender player. And you know me and Fenders, I don't love the necks on them, but this, for some reason, Western swing focus. Woof. Yeah, we could do that sometime. I love that stuff. I love that stuff. It might be you and me, Pangaroo, in the live stream together doing that. Western swing. But it is fun, for sure. What was I going to say? But I like the neck on this. I actually like it. And I like the no-caster pickups. I find them good. But having said that, I got this back. And so I'm going to play it a little bit. I don't know. We'll just play it a little bit. See how it goes. And it's 1:30 already, but this might be a little out of tune. So we'll tune it up. Tune it up. Tune it up. Yeah, a little sharp. Now this does not intonate perfectly because it has, 3 barrels on the bridge. So this is a Squier. This is a Squier classic vibe. And it's decent. I got this back. I gave it to a friend to keep. And he gave it back to me. Not just because we've been doing this for a while. I gave him a Strat. He gave me that Strat back. I gave him this. He did eventually give it back to me. Again, I'm not expecting any of these back. So I gave him a PRS this time. We'll see if he gives the PRS back. But I really like it. I really like the feel of it. I like the blonde thing. The blonde finish on it. It's a little bit translucent, which is kind of nice. It's a little bit quieter. Let's just jam around a little bit. What the heck? We'll just see if we can do something on this. We'll put on the neck pickup and see how that sounds. Ooh. Put on some. Let's got on the neck pickup on this. All right, see ya. Yeah, let's just play something like that. I like it actually. It is kind of nice, right? Oh, it plays really nice. It plays very, very nicely now. Yeah, very, very nicely. All right, I think I'm going to just sit here for a while and see if there are any questions or whatever. We'll just hang for a bit because I've got some coffee left. So hope you all enjoyed it. If you're just joining, the show already kind of happened. The lesson already happened. We did a very lessony lesson in the beginning. And so we'll see how it goes. Thanks, Stephen. Thanks. Thanks, buddy. It's interesting picking up a guitar like that versus some of the other ones. That one's a little bit hard to just pick up and play something on. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I could play something. I play a lot more blues usually, a lot more bluesy than this stuff I played today. But it is what it is. It is what it is. Not the right neck. You mean, Will, you mean Fenders? Or you mean Squires? Classic vibe. Yeah, they do have, it does have a very, very thin neck. There's no question about it. It has a very thin and skinny neck. So it's not very wide, and it's very thin. So yeah, this thing is not the baseball bat. The other one, the regular Fender, has a much thicker neck, which is much, I like it more. Oh, Brian Setzer, huh? Oh, the Fender. You don't like Fender necks. Okay, got it. Yeah, Fender necks I find, I like Les Paul necks. I like thicker necks. I tend to like thicker necks. But the worst ones for me, I'm finding, are the shred necks. The ones that are built for shredding, the really wide, flat ones. Don't get me wrong, they can be okay to play lead on for a while, but boy, after a little while, my hand just gets so tired, especially if I'm playing chords. Ugh. I play this so horribly. See if I can do those bends easily enough. Yeah, not too bad. No, it's separate. I'm going direct. Here, I'll show you what it sounds like without the clip. I'll be talking soon and you won't hear me talking. So this is, or maybe you'll just hear me talking a little bit, but not much. Okay, so you can't hear me now. You can't hear me. This is what it sounds like. So. Some problem. It has some problems. See, you couldn't hear my voice there. It has some problems with the cutting of the nut there. I'll probably have to replace the nut at some point, but. Can't do it. Can't hit that D because this only has it doesn't have 21 frets. Or 22. It only has 21, right? It doesn't have 22. Anyway, I can't do it. I guess I could bend it a step and a half. Maybe not. Not today. Oh, thanks, Jeff. I love them too. I love them too. This is one of my favorites. I learned this from David. I learned this one a long time ago. That's a really hard one because, let me go close. That's a really hard one because you're bending with your first finger, but all I'm really doing is, see, I have an E chord here. Right? So if I bend from here to here, I bend into this chord. It's hard to do slowly. So that's what I'm doing. It's the same as this. You're bending into the same chord, you're bending the same note, but here you're holding notes below it. The advantage of this one, I learned this from David Grissom, not David Grissman, David Grissom. But if you transition this, you can play and play that inversion there of an E. So you can play this E. It's really pretty, I think. It's really pretty. I like that a lot. Yeah, it's a full step bend. It's a full step bend. You know, I'm wondering, now that my hands are starting to get, I feel like they're getting a little bit arthritis. I'm so worried about it. My mom had like just total pretzel hands by the time she was 65 or 60. I don't work in the garden like she did. Anyway, I've got to be careful with my hands, but I'm trying not to bend and hurt myself anymore. You know, luckily I have some of that still left, so. But a lot of times, in doing a step and a half bend, I'll actually move up and do it instead of, I'll move up a fret and do a full step bend instead of doing a step and a half. So for example, instead of this, instead of that, I might play. That's a lot easier. Now, in that case, it's really the same motion, so it's hard to do it, but you know, if you didn't recognize that as the song that it was, I could get away with it. But here, you know, you can't. So anyway, I find I can do things on the B string decently and on the G string decently, but not on the E string anymore. I've gone so light that I break them all the time too. I use nines now on the E string, and I break that E string all the time. So that's another thing that makes it hard for me. I hate breaking strings. It's always like you know how you break a string and you're like, do I really want to bend this again? Or then the other thing that's fun is when you're breaking, when the string is about to break because you can feel it out unraveling. Every time you're bending so far out of tune. So you bend it a whole step, and yes, that's exactly right, Jeff. That's exactly right. That's how Jimi Hendrix would play it. Jeff, you got it right. That's the full step. You work down to the first inversion of the E chord there. Yep. Yep. All right. Hey, let me tell you about this gig that I had the other day. I played a gig last Saturday. It was a wedding show. I told some people this. It was a wedding show. They had a bride and a groom who were actors. They had a mother of the groom who was an actress or an actor, I mean, and they had the father of the bride was an actor, and then they had a family friend who was an actor, and the officiant, the person who was the not they didn't have a priest, they had an officiant, the justice of the peace, I guess, and she was a hilarious character. It was this really new agey type of person. It was really funny. They were all actors. And so what people would do is they pay to go to the show and see these people married, and you participate. So you get a card as you're going in, and you get a description of who you are and what your relationship is, whether you're a groom or bride, and everybody's pretending. It's kind of fun. And but we were a surprise. The producer is the drummer in our band. The producer of that show is the drummer in our band. And so she arranged it as a surprise to the cast that we were in there. So she unexpectedly says, "Oh, the DJ had to go, so I don't know whether we're going to have music." And then there's this guitar that she pulls out and says, "Does anybody know how to play this?" And I raised my hand. I said, "Well, I play a little bit." And I had an interesting card that I pulled too. I was the father of the bride, but she didn't know. She didn't know who I was. It was unknown. She was raised by a single mom, and I ended up being the unknown father. It was kind of fun. But anyway, that was just playing, okay, playing, folks. I'm not really that. But anyway, so I got up there and they said, "Okay, so can you play anything for the wedding?" And so I played the beginning to Stairway to Heaven, and they're like, no, not that. Do you have something more appropriate? So I played Here Comes the Bride. And they're like, "No, not that." And so then I started into our song list. So we played Tracy Chapman's Give Me One Reason, and we started playing that. And my other bandmates came around behind the curtain, unbeknownst to everybody else. And then they started singing Give Me One Reason, and everybody was like, "What's going on?" And then they opened up the curtain, and so I'm up there playing with everybody else. It was a blast. It was a lot of fun. They didn't know what was going on. And then we played a bunch of dance music. It was R&B type stuff we played. So it was a lot of fun. I don't think so. Only playing live like this. Those are the only videos I have right now, Pangaroo. We'll probably have some of that stuff. Yeah, it was really fun. I'd never been to anything like it. The drummer in our band, she's really a creative person. Um, yeah, she's from San Diego and moved here a while ago, and just thought of that idea. Uh, she found out later they used to have these in New Jersey. They had a lot of these Tina and Tony weddings. It was a thing, but she didn't know about it. She's young. Well, for me, in our band, I think she's young. Her husband's pretty young too. He's the singer in our band, and I think she's like 30 or so, and he's maybe 35. And then there's the bass player who's my age and me. So big difference. I'm late 50s. Wait to marry when I'm 40. Well, this was just a fake wedding, Willie, just so that you know. Uh, Do I have any of the wedding footage? I don't know. My wife went and participated, so I think she took a few of the. She took a little bit of that. Give me one reason. Yeah, it was so good. It was so good. I know it's funny. It's basically just blues, but it's so good. I agree. I agree. Avis Preda, Avis, totally agree. Hey, if you're just joining, if I know some people are joining, if you're just joining, the the lessony part in the show is over. You can go back to the beginning and see it. We're just kind of hanging out and drinking some coffee, answering questions if you have any. Mm. All right. Well, I think I'm gonna head out and do some fishing tonight, and I'm gonna see a movie and have a pizza tonight with my wife, and maybe a salad. That sounds good. All right, folks. I'll see you in a while. Um, we might not have live streams the first couple weeks of August. I'll have to see. The main reason is because I'm going to Sweden. So I'll be in Sweden for a week. I'm going with my whole family. My wife and I, my two kids, and my daughter's boyfriend are going together and enjoying it. We're renting a house in Stockholm or near Stockholm, so it'll be fun. Hopefully, it'll be a lot of fun. All right, we'll see you, Gary. What do I play? Highway to. Well, uh, uh, oh, okay, cool, cool. That's great, Avis. Awesome. Awesome. Okay. Okay. I don't understand that comment, Dan. All right. Okay, folks. We'll see you in maybe a couple weeks or maybe a little bit longer, but we'll see. We'll see you. Thanks a lot for coming. Thanks for your continued support. If you, I want last shout out to members and last shout out if you want to become a member. Would love to have you as a member. 15% off today, and thanks to the folks who put a little bit of money in the till for today, doing a super chat. Always appreciate a little tip. That's great. Okay, we'll see you in a little bit, and thanks. Love you all.